Secretary Clinton said she would do this, and it would be a completely unvarnished appraisal, and that's exactly what it is. And I think she and the administration deserve credit for doing what was required here and for really going to great lengths to make sure this was a very professional presentation. Everything that the report has suggested has been embraced by the State Department and more.
That is Senator John Kerry, who many believe will follow Hillary Clinton at State, reacting today to the government's report on the deadly attack on the U.S. consulate in Benghazi. Lawmakers had classified briefings today. Public hearings are tomorrow on the Hill. Secretary Clinton was supposed to testify. She is on doctor's orders to rest after suffering a concussion last week. Here's what we do know from the report. No one person is to blame, but systematic failures made two bureaus inside the State Department, quote, grossly inadequate to deal with the attack that took place. The report says State ignored requests for more guards and security upgrades, relied too heavily on specific threats, and used untested local militias to protect the compound. Any way you spin it, the report is a major hit to the State Department, and so far 3 officials have resigned over it. The guest spot today to talk about this is Mark Ginsburg, former U.S. ambassador to Morocco. Mark, thanks for joining us. I guess my immediate reaction to this report is I have no doubt that there are plenty of things we can learn from this, plenty of steps that can be taken in the future, and the things we can identify that probably should have been done here. I guess what I wonder and what I'd like your take on is there a certain element here, though, where look, you're trying to set up a diplomatic operation during the most tumultuous time, basically, in Middle East history. Set it up on the fly. It's one of many around the world that the State Department has to monitor. And at a certain point, there's also a certain element of risk that comes with being a diplomat overseas, especially in a hotspot like the Middle East for the United States. Is there a certain level here where we can come out with a report like this and we can identify things that should be done differently? But is there also a certain point of, these things really can almost happen at any time, as horrible as they are?
Well, indeed, listen, Ambassador Stevens, who I knew well, and the people who I didn't know but who were nevertheless were murdered along with him, and who were brave and courageous in their own right in defending his own safety and security. Look, these incidences, there's a wall in the State Department of diplomats who've been killed in action. Including ambassadors. But the fact is that this is a devastating report, because it's devastating because, and as a former ambassador and someone who worked over 20 years ago in the Management Bureau of State and worked on these issues myself, I realize that in some respects, I think the real unwritten damning part of this report is how the Foreign Service let down their own fellow Foreign Service officers. And I dare say that if I were a political appointee ambassador in Libya and I demanded more security, the people in the Management Bureau have been more responsive to me than they would have been responsive to their own. And that really is ironic, but yet that's how I feel about the matter.
Yeah, Ambassador Ginsburg, I mean, as much as you can never sort of know when this is going to happen, we had reports from the House Intelligence Committee months ago, and it's also outlined again in this report about numerous threats on that consulate in Benghazi and the numerous requests for increased security that were denied. And having gone through the report, I have it in my hand right here, I found that the most damning recommendation was number 21. I want to put it up on the screen and get you to comment on it. It said, in a post-2001 intelligence collection has expanded exponentially, but the Benghazi attacks are a stark reminder that we cannot over-rely on the certainty or even likelihood of warning intelligence. Careful attention should be given to factors showing a deteriorating threat situation in general as a basis for improving security posture. Key trends must be quickly identified and used to sharpen risk calculations. To me, what's implied there is that since 9/11, we might have increased our security and intelligence capabilities, but we seem to have maybe gotten a little complacent in feeling like the security, the terror threats around the world are not as dangerous, perhaps, as we know them to be now.
Look, there's no doubt. When I was ambassador, I had a major threat and attempted assassination on my life, and my security went up triple-fold.
Right.
I think what is most devastating about what you just said was that the security officer, the regional security officer, Eric Nordstrom, who had testified on the Hill several months ago, along with the people who I believe have now resigned, or resigned today, said that the Taliban is within the State Department, not in Afghanistan. He knew the threats had caused a deterioration of the security situation in Libya. This was no surprise to anybody, including me, and yet the State Department told him to shut up, keep his mouth shut, and to take his concerns elsewhere. That's what I think is most damning about what happened here.
Right. Well, and Ambassador, I was hoping you could give us sort of a ground level view of what it's like to be inside the State Department, what the protocol is. For example, who are these security requests sent to? What is the procedure for deciding which requests are granted and which aren't? And what's your guess as to why these particular security requests weren't granted?
I think, first of all, the way this normally works quickly is that the embassy has each embassy has a regional security officer, and he reports to the security officer of each regional bureau, in this case, the Near East Bureau. And yet on the overlay of the Near East Bureau is the Diplomatic Security Bureau that basically allocates and decides what the threat atmosphere is in each embassy. In this situation, what happened is that the State Department regional security officer knew the threat level had increased dramatically, but yet for some reason that I don't know if the report reveals publicly, and I haven't seen and I probably won't have access to the confidential annex. For some reason, the Diplomatic Security Office and the Management Bureau of the State Department cookie-cuttered Libya into some other category rather than a category that would have placed it on a much higher threat level. And so I think there was a total breakdown between what the regional security officer was warning about and the bureaucrats in the State Department who were basically saying, well, what you're saying really doesn't fit into our definition of what would require an increase in security.
Ambassador, we made it clear in this conversation that the State Department failed the Benghazi consulate before the attack, but it also makes clear that once the attack happened, the response was timely and appropriate. Senior-level intra-agency discussions were underway soon after Washington received initial word of the attacks, continued through the night. The board found no evidence of undue delays in decision-making or denial of support from Washington. Quite the contrary, the safe evacuation of all government personnel from Benghazi 12 hours after the initial attack was the result of exceptional government coordination and military response and helped save the lives of 2 severely wounded Americans. What do you make of that part of the report?
I think that should be absolutely right, and that the department reacted and the U.S. government reacted very quickly and professionally as soon as they had gotten wind of the report. And yet, again, I think the department and the U.S. government responded the way any U.S. government should have responded when they had that type of threat occur and where the attack had begun. So, yes, there's no reason to question that aspect of the report, I suspect.
Okay, Ambassador Mark Ginsburg, thanks for joining us as always. Up next, more on all of this.
We are not going to have a Supreme Court that will overturn Roe versus Wade. We're not going to repeal health reform. We're not going to give a 20% tax cut to millionaires and billionaires. We are not going to amend the United States Constitution to stop gay people from getting married. We are not eliminating the Department of Energy. We are not letting Detroit go bankrupt. We are not vetoing the DREAM Act. We had the choice to do that, and we said no.
With a Crizal lens, neither dust nor dirt, nor smudge, nor scratch, nor glare of night can keep you from the clearest vision possible. Crizal lenses. Live life in the clear.
I was diagnosed with inoperable stage 3B lung cancer. I came across the website for the Cancer Treatment Centers of America. That was the first ray of hope.
One of the most exciting things of working here at Cancer Treatment Centers of America, Tulsa, is we have a team of specialists in lung cancer treatment.
Dr. Nader has been with me the whole time, and I know that he cares about me.
We were able to take the team that included medical oncology, radiation oncology, and a variety of other specialists that looked at her particular case and put together a treatment plan that was very unique to Kathy's situation. Having a wide variety of tools under one roof allows us to make a diagnosis and then perform the treatment plan for that particular patient.
At Cancer Treatment Centers of America, it's always and only about the patient.
Included in her comprehensive treatment approach was the ancillary services that we provide: naturopathy, mind-body medicine, and nutrition. These services in themselves were very helpful in terms of the support care of Kathy.
I will be continuing with my doctors here to keep track of what's going on in my lungs. I have to do what it takes to keep me breathing.
If you or someone you love has complex or advanced stage lung cancer, go to cancercenter.com/lung cancer. You'll see how our lung cancer treatment results compare to national averages. You'll also see why Cancer Treatment Centers of America, with its extensive clinical expertise in treating lung cancer, has a patient satisfaction rating of over 95%. Go to cancercenter.com and find out if yours is one of the hundreds of insurance plans with which we've worked. Cancer Treatment Centers of America. Care that never quits. Appointments available now.
I'd like to thank Eating Right, Whole Grain, Multigrain Cheerios. Mom, are those my jeans?
People who choose more whole grain tend to weigh less than those who don't. Multigrain Cheerios.
I take responsibility. I'm in charge of the State Department, 60,000 plus people all over the world, 275 posts. The president and the vice president certainly wouldn't be knowledgeable about specific decisions that are made by security professionals.
That, of course, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton accepting blame at the time. And last night she sent letters to the House and the Senate saying she accepts every single one of the recommendations from that independent panel, and also suggested her own additional changes as well. Some cyclists think she'll be the next president of the United States. That's me. But could this be the event that takes the bloom off the rose that is Hillary 2016? Let's backspin. This is a tough, critical report. The ambassador said devastating. Mistakes were made by State Department bureaucrats. Does anybody think that Hillary Clinton got a request for more security and said, no, they don't need it? Of course not. And the idea of a cover-up is sort of blown away by she ordered this report. So clearly there's no cover-up that she's trying to cover up. Look, the report also disproves one of the core attacks of McCain and Graham, that after this attack started, they're failing to provide appropriate military support. Clearly they did, and they were exceptional, the report says, in that regard. Look, the long-term political impact for Hillary is going to be nil. America does not look at this as a scandal. It is a tragedy. There's no cover-up here. There's not going to be a lasting political stain. This will not cost her one vote in the primary or the general in 2016. And what we actually see is self-analysis. She ordered this report. She's taking responsibility there for things that she didn't actually do. She's instituting changes that are above and beyond what the report demands. And she's leading the way in trying to make this better.
Well, I think there are two ways of trying to understand the political fallout for Hillary Clinton, if we want to look at it from that angle. I think there's if you take it head on and you say, is this report and is the issue of Benghazi going to sink Hillary Clinton in 2016? Is it going to cost her any votes in 2016? Is it even going to come up in 2016? I would tend to agree with you, but I think we need to broaden out our understanding of how this affects her politically, and I think we need to look at it this way. Hillary Clinton has been on the national stage now for 20 years, since 1992. For the first 15 and a half years, I would say roughly, she was one of the chief villains that the Republican message machine had. She and her husband, basically co-equals, could not stand the Clintons. And then what happened? In 2008, Obama supplanted the Clintons as the face of the Democratic Party, and suddenly Republicans decided Hillary Clinton's the good Democrat. And they have treated her as the good Democrat, and they've treated Bill Clinton as the good Democrat for the last 4 years. She now has a 70% approval rating. That's where a lot of this 2016 momentum comes from. The point is this: there had to be a moment, there has to be a moment sometime soon where Republicans go back to attacking the Clintons daily. It's their only way to stop her in 2016. And I think the significance of this moment is, I think this is where it begins. It may not be Benghazi they're attacking over her over a month or 2 or 3 months from now, but this is, I think, the moment when their posture towards her will shift.
Sir, I totally agree with that. And I also agree with the sentiment that this isn't going to have a big impact on her presidential ambitions. And Republicans really actually missed an opportunity to make a salient political point about Hillary on this, and instead decided to focus wrongly on Susan Rice, who had very little to do with this and this whole ridiculous conversation about her talking points on Sunday morning talk shows. So McCain and Graham and Ayotte really gave Hillary a pass in all of that. And at this point, let's be real. It's the holidays. There's a lot of other stuff in the news. Hillary's going to leave the State Department and go on to do great work in the world in nonprofit areas. It's going to be very hard for Republicans to attack her past this point because she's not going to be in the political arena until, of course, she declares to run for president in 2016.
Well, I agree that Hillary's been given a pass on all sides, but Republicans and everyone interested in getting to the bottom of Benghazi, there was a lot of blame to go around, and people were trying to ask everyone questions that they could. Hillary has not made herself available and has decided not to testify again this week. I think she will.
She didn't decide. She has a concussion.
Okay.
And wants to
You
testify
don't believe
in
that?
the future.
She's
and is
lying. Now she's lying about the concussion?
That she'll have to testify in the future.
I think she wants to testify.
When I went through this, I got this late last night. When I went through, I was looking for any mention of Hillary Clinton, and there wasn't one. And that's okay. But to a certain extent, the blame placed on the State Department ultimately ends at her desk. And I think, as Chuck Todd said this morning, there's a black mark on her record. I don't think this black mark is going to last through the holidays, let alone over the next 4 years and disqualify her. As for the cover-up, the details of this report end on September 12th. So it doesn't really look into that aspect. And I know that plenty of Republicans are continuing to and will do so until they get answers on that front as well.
Why's it got to be a black mark, Essie? All right. We've had a lot of serious stuff. Let's take a moment for a holiday update. Today is the busiest day for holiday package deliveries.